Hi guys, Rich from TrackSpark here. Hope you're all good. And welcome to another little tutorial. Today's is sort of just on mixing your kick and your bass together and getting a decent balance between the two, and also getting a nice sort of fat and bitey bass, I guess, to help it sort of cut through in your mix, but also cut through not just on headphones and studio monitors, but also like laptop speakers and iPhones and that sort of thing too. So I'll just show you a little trick about that. I have actually spoken about that before in previous tutorials, but we'll sort of, it's slightly different in this one. Same sort of principle, but the technique's slightly different. So we'll have a look at that, and sort of, like I said, how to balance your bass and your kick. So let's get on with it. Now, the reason I sort of do this is because I like to sort of do my kick drum and my bass. I like to build my mix around my kick drum and my bass first, and my drums. So I'll do my kick drum and my bass, and then the rest of my drums, and then bring up the rest of my mix around that, because I find that is just the best way. That gives me the most sort of even mix, the best balance of everything. So that's the reason that I'm sort of showing you this, because that's the way I sort of work. Anyway, let's get on with it. I'll try not to ramble too much, because I know I always do. So here's my bass. In fact, before we do that, let's have a quick listen to the tune that I've been working on. It's for an advert. So it's a guitar sort of bass song. So let's have a quick listen. Yeah, so it's for an advert. So hence the lyrics. Right. Anyway, enough of that. Now, usually, sort of, because it's a guitar-based sort of song, I've got a real guitar in here. So in a previous tutorial, I've spoken about sort of splitting my. I think I used a synth bass. I talked about splitting my bass up into different frequency ranges, frequency sections, and then sort of doing different things, and then layering them up that way to help them cut through in the mix, or through different speakers in the mix, and and so that they work through different speakers. This is a similar sort of thing, but like I say, this time I've got a real bass guitar, and a lot of the time if you're mixing bass, or when I'm doing bass, I'll have a DI, signal, and a mic'd up signal from my bass amp. So I've got two different signals that I've got to marry together. So here we can see bass DI, and the other one's bass amp. In this situation, I've only got a DI. The signal is a DI. That is it. I DI'd it, and then what I've done is I have just doubled my DI signal, and I've stuck an amp plugin, a bass amp simulator plugin on this to give me that sort of bass amp signal, and then I'll show you how I've married them together. And what I sort of tend to do is use my DI. So I've got them in two different frequency ranges, and I'll use my DI as my lower end, and then my amp signal as my sort of body to the bass, and then I've got both of them sort of routed through this bass group here. So let's just play the DI so you can hear it. I'd like to apologise if you can hear little pops, hear little crackles and stuff. I'm getting interference from outside. I think there's some workmen going on or something, and I keep getting all this interference, and it's doing my head in. But there's nothing I can do about it, so I apologise. Yeah. Anyway, so here's my bass DI signal, and I just want the low end for my DI because I find that the clean, like, I want it to be clean. I don't want to distort my low end. I want it to be sort of, you know, the rounder, sort of cleaner element to my bass sound. So I've put a high pass, a low pass filter on. So I'm just getting, I've boosted it also at 100, quite a big boost, because I always find that fattens it up and through the mix anyway. But let's just listen to that again. So we've just got the low end, and I've got this voice of God on it as well, actually, and that makes it really nice and fat. So we take that off, really fat. I love it. It's great. So what I've done, so that's my low end, and what I've sort of, the reason for this is, and then what I've got here is my bass amp signal. And that's going to, like I say, provide the body and the bite, I guess, and it's going to help. This is the signal that's going to help sort of make the bass cut through in those other, you know, speakers or systems that don't have such a low end. And what I do for that is add a bit of distortion, and this sort of, you know, low mid EQ, just to help it sort of cut through. And it gives you more control between the two frequencies. If ultimately I decide that, yeah, my bass needs to bite through more, sort of cut through in those low mids, and stick out in the not so good speakers, so to speak, I can then I can just boost the level of this frequency range without affecting the sub end, the low end of it all, and, you know, muddying up my mix. So that's the reason for splitting them. Plus, you know, I can distort this to help that happen. A bit of harmonic, just a bit of, you know, distortion helps cut through. And I don't want to distort my sub end, my low end. So that's the reason for splitting them up. So again, though, I've got a low pass filter, but from sort of 5K, because if we listen to it, if I was to take this, there's all of that sort of hiss and noise and all that sort of clicky, bitey stuff. So I just want to clean all that up. And I'll just show you, look, I've got this bass amp sim on here. It's this Ampeg, yeah, from UAD, which is great. So, and I've also got a high pass filter, because I've got everything sort of from, on my DI, I've got everything sort of from sort of, you know, 2K downwards. I don't want to sort of cross over the frequencies between my DI and my bass amp, my amp sound. So I'm taking all of that low end out so that we're not sort of doubling up on all that low end. So let's just put them together. Just my sort of amp sound with a bit of distortion to help it cut through and bite through, and then there's all the low end, and they're just sort of compressed together through the groove as well. So here I've got this 1176 on there, to just help compress the signal all together. Okay, so that's sort of what I do with my bass. Now, to get a decent level between my kick and my kick drum and my bass, what I do, this is not my technique at all, but I use it. I got this off the Recording Revolution, I think a couple of years back. Graham from the Recording Revolution, so thank you, Graham. And what it is it's all I've got is this VU meter, right? And what I'm using this VU meter for is to get a relative volume between my kick drum and my bass guitar, so that they work together at the volume that I want, so that I know that I've got a good balance in it, and this works really well. So like I said, I've got this VU meter, and it's the Klanghelm Vumpt, and it's like €8, I think. So let's just listen to. So let's just turn this on, turn the Vumpt on, and then get my kick drum. So I'm just going to solo my kick drum. That's my kick drum. So it's sampled. It's 2 samples together. There's one, which is nice, and that one sounds blooming awful. And even together, doesn't sound amazing. It sounds much better just the one. But in the mix, in fact, let's just turn this Vumps off a second. And the reason for that is obviously the one that I've called Big Fat Kick, and I'm going to mute it. Sorry guys, do you know what? I'm just going to get rid of the vocals because they're getting in the way here. So let's just mute. I'm just muting all my vocals. So you can hear the kick, it's nice, it's quite weighty and fat, but I wanted a bit more punch, so that's where the big fat one comes in. So you can hear it's kicking through it's coming through the mix, it's punching through the mix much more with this one, even though it sounds horrible. And this, I've got like a low pass on it, because without it, it's got like a it's got a hi-hat in there on every hit. So I just wanted to sort of filter that out to the point where I don't need it. So that's all I've done there. That was just a quick sort of description of what I've done there. Anyway, right, back to the Vumpt. Okay, so I'm going to solo my kick group now. Right, the theory is that if you get your kick to sort of to hit at -3 on your VU meter, and then add your bass, they should sort of, and when they hit together, they should meet 0. So first of all, I've got to get my kick on -3. And the reason for that is, I mean, I've pulled the gain right down so that it hits at -3. You could have it hitting at -5 or -7. I could just alter this so that it there, or I could have it so that it's hitting at 0. Yeah, but I'm going to have it at -3 because this crackling is really doing my head in. Because if you were to double up, apparently, if you were to double up a kick drum, just a kick drum sample, double it up, then it would add 3 dB to the signal. So you know that if you've got your kick on its own and then married with your bass, then you've got this a really nice sort of balance between the two. You've got the same amount of volume coming from each. So that's why -3. So we get this to -3, and then if we add our bass guitar or our bass or whatever, bass group, bass synth, then they should sort of hit it around, or hit it sort of give or take 0. when they hit together, it should be it should be 0. So that it, give or take, it's there. So I know that I've got a decent balance between the two. And then I build the rest of my mix from that. That's my sort of ground zero. I build it up from there. So there we go. Let's have a listen. There we go. So hope that was useful, and I'll see you next month. Cheers. Bye.